Until recently, we had 5 different edge products, and those were, Ignition Edge IIoT, Ignition Edge Panel, Ignition Edge Compute, Ignition Edge Sync Services, and Ignition Edge EAM. And what was interesting about these edge products is that they all had different functionality, and you could mix and match, meaning that rarely would people buy just one of these. They'd buy some collection of these to get the functionality that they needed to deploy at the edge. And there was a little complexity inherent in that, and having to understand all 5 of these products and which of the 5 you had and all that kind of stuff, and which ones you needed for your application. And so we recently simplified Ignition Edge into 2 products. So now we have Ignition Edge IIoT and Ignition Edge Panel. And the capabilities of Edge Compute, Edge Sync Services, and Edge EAM all now are included in what was originally Edge IIoT. And so if you look at 4 of these products, Edge IIoT and then skip Panel, but the next 3, Compute, Sync Services, and EAM, those are now all included if you buy Ignition Edge IIoT. And that's not all that we changed. We also said as part of that, originally there was a 2-device limitation, and we decided to scratch that limitation and just say it's now unlimited. You can connect to as many devices as you want. And also for people that are collecting data, there was a 7-day limit so that you could only buffer data and then forward that data to a centralized system, and the centralized system is where you would store long-term data. And another change we made is we said this data buffer would be more valuable if it could hold at least a month's worth of data. There's a lot of applications out there that require a month of data. And so now instead of being limited to 7 days, it's limited to 35 days. You also see Edge Panel there. Edge Panel includes everything that comes with Ignition Edge IIoT, but also adds visualization. And so that, once again, is kind of a departure from where I had to pick and choose what I wanted, and I had to buy multiple versions of Edge before to get what I wanted. Now you'd only ever pick one or the other. Edge IIoT is going to include, all the connectivity and the data migration to send all that data up to a centralized system. Edge Panel then adds visualization, so you can also view all that data locally and do local control. But Edge Panel also includes all of that data collection and the ability to publish that up to a centralized system over our gateway network or over MQTT. But because it included all those other modules as part of these now, that also gives you the ability to run scripts, create REST APIs, act as an EAM agent gateway, so that from a central server, you could remotely manage all of your Edge instances and so on. And so a lot of additional value that's just out of the box with these now. And we think it'll be a simpler process for people trying to figure out how to leverage Edge in their architectures. Now it's not so many different products to pick and choose from. It's 2 products, and they just kind of have all the functionality you need. Wanted to highlight, we call this Ignition IIoT for a reason, and that's because it allows you to tie in with the Ignition IIoT solutions that we talk about on our website, meaning that it can publish data up over MQTT in that spark plug format. Then connect to our MQTT brokers we have through CirrusLink, or third-party brokers, bring all that data in at the central level. And because of that, yeah, it's compatible with Ignition centrally as an IIoT platform, but also can connect to third-party IIoT platforms. And so really Ignition Edge IIoT turns your devices into lightweight MQTT-enabled edge gateways, so they can pull data from devices and then publish that up to an MQTT server for your systems and applications to assess. We talked about Edge Panel, and adding that visualization really makes a world of a difference as far as like what you can start doing with the product. And so what's included with that when we say you add visualization? So we have 2 modules that do visualization. We have our vision module that we've had for a long time, and we have our perspective module, which I used to always call the new module. I'm trying to get out of the habit of calling it new anymore because we've had it for 5 years, but we also have perspective, and Edge supports both. So you can decide whether you're going to have it support perspective or vision. It's just a little drop down in the configuration. And if you choose perspective, you get 2 sessions. With vision, you get 2 clients, 1 local and remote. And really that's intended to be, I'm running Edge on a local panel, but you also get 1 bonus client, right, to view somewhere else on your network. It's good for standalone HMIs. It's also good if you were normally running a client off a central server, but you need local client fallback. So if you lose a connection to that central server, you've got that fallback local HMI, while still having all the abilities to publish that data up over MQTT or our gateway network. There's a couple reasons that we really decided to simplify Ignition Edge. The main reasons were that we felt that the product options were overly complex, and it made it difficult for customers to choose the right solutions, and to be honest, for us, to help them through that process. We spend a lot of time talking about Edge and what's right for them, and we just wanted to make that simpler. And also, Edge was starting to look more like a modular platform to us, which is really what standard Ignition is supposed to be. Standard Ignition is modular in that you can pick and choose exactly what you need. And we really intended Ignition Edge to be more purpose-built. And so this is putting it more in line with what the original intent of Ignition Edge was. And even though we've expanded some of the capabilities of Ignition Edge, like the unlimited devices and the internal tag historian and others, there's some clear limitations to Ignition Edge that will keep you from using it as a primary system, because it's not a full SCADA system. The first is that Ignition Edge, is more focused on just data connectivity and then forwarding that to a centralized system. It's not really going to work as a full standalone historian because it's not designed for long-term storage, right? It doesn't have long enough data retention. But we are excited that it is now expanded to 35 days. Ignition Edge also is not designed to run an entire facility. It's really for single panel displays with that bonus display I talked about. And so Ignition Edge does not support adding additional modules like standard Ignition does. So you couldn't add like the reporting module, or you couldn't add the Twilio module for alarm notification. You can't do that kind of stuff, right? And so really it's just, you look at the functionality that's provided, and if that fits your application, then that's great. If it doesn't, that's fine. Use standard edition. Then you can go and pick and choose exactly what you need. And so here are some questions that you could ask yourself when trying to decide which one is right for your application. Do you need access to a database? If the answer is yes, then standard Ignition is the way to go, because Ignition Edge does not allow you to connect to a local database. Now it can forward data up to a centralized system, which could then log the data to a database, right? But it doesn't directly connect to that database. Another question you could ask is, do I need more than 2 sessions or clients? And how could I add more? The answer is, if you need more than 2, once again, standard Ignition is the right thing for you. But if 2 is going to be sufficient, then Edge is great. But no, you cannot pay for additional sessions or clients on Ignition Edge. You would have to be using standard Ignition. Next question, do you just need a local HMI or fallback client in the field? If that's your question, then the answer is Ignition Edge would be a great fit. If you just need that local HMI, standard Ignition may be overkill, right? And so Ignition Edge can connect to that local equipment. And if it loses connectivity, you still have that visualization local without any connectivity to a central server. And in a similar vein, are you looking for a local data buffer next to a critical piece of equipment? So not just do I need local visualization, even if I lose my connection to a central gateway, but do I need to make sure I keep collecting data if I lose a connection to a central gateway? If the answer is yes, Ignition Edge is a great fit as well, right? Because it can be, directly connected to that device, direct Ethernet connection. It can just be pulling that data and have that 35-day buffer. So as long as you get back connected to a centralized system within 35 days, you're not going to lose any data. What's the conversion process to the new versions of Edge? Is that free? Is there a cost? All that kind of stuff. Those are all good questions. To really help you with any complexity there, we do encourage you to reach out to your account executive, and they can help you through that process. But at a high level, we want to reward people who are on support contracts. And so the people who are on support contracts, if you already had panel and IIoT with any of the other products, you'll get the new panel that has everything included for free. But what if I didn't have EAM, or I didn't have Edge Compute or Sync Services? Doesn't matter, you'll get those all added for free. What if I had just panel, but I didn't have IIoT? Then we'll add Sync Services and Compute and EAM for free. Those will come now just with your panel, and you'll get the changes to like unlimited devices. But if you wanted to add the IIoT piece of it, then there's going to be a little cost that gets added to that. I think this is supposed to show a little bit farther down here. I think this is cut off, but also if you had just IIoT, but not panel, then to upgrade to the full panel, then you'd have to pay for the difference there of what it'd be to go from IIoT to panel. And so if you just have IIoT though, with a support contract, all those other products will just be added to you as well. So yeah, we're trying to make it simple. If you're not on a support contract, there'll be a slight upgrade fee, but it comes at a discount. But like I said, just reach out to your account executive and they can help you through all that. There is bulk discounts for Edge. If you have a big application that you think this would be a good fit for, we'd love to make sure the pricing is going to work out for you, and this should really help.